Shalom, I'm Rabbi David, and today I'm going to reveal something that will completely change how you understand miracles, prayer, and your own power. God is not interested in your prayers. I know, that sounds blasphemous. That sounds like I'm telling you to stop praying. But I'm not. I'm telling you something far more profound. God doesn't want you to beg. God wants you to act. God doesn't want you to pray for miracles. God wants you to create miracles. Let me explain, and by the end of this video you'll understand how to access miracles and control nature, not metaphorically, literally. This is ancient Kabbalistic wisdom. This is the secret that Moses used to split the Red Sea. This is the secret that the patriarchs used to create wealth, health, and abundance. And this is the secret that you can use today. But first, let me tell you a story from the Torah that will blow your mind. Exodus chapter 14. The Israelites have just left Egypt. They're standing at the Red Sea, and behind them, Pharaoh's army is charging. Thousands of soldiers, chariots, weapons. Death is coming. The people are screaming at Moses, "Why did you bring us here to die? We should have stayed in Egypt." And Moses, in that moment, does what any religious person would do. He prays, he screams to God, he begs for help. And God's response? This is what changes everything. God says to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move forward." Wait, what? Moses is praying, the people are about to die, and God says, "Why are you praying to me? Move forward." In other words, stop praying, start acting. I already gave you the tools, use them. This is the secret. This is what most people don't understand about miracles, about prayer, about accessing divine power. God doesn't want you to beg. God wants you to use the tools He already gave you. And what are those tools? That's what I'm going to teach you today. But first, let me destroy a lie that's keeping most people powerless. The lie is this: if I pray hard enough, if I'm good enough, if God likes me enough, He'll give me what I need. This is wrong, completely wrong. In Isaiah chapter 1, God says through the prophet, "What are your many sacrifices to me? I am full of burnt offerings. I do not delight in them. Stop bringing meaningless offerings. Your incense is detestable to me. Even when you spread out your hands in prayer, I hide my eyes from you. Even when you offer many prayers, I am not listening." God is not listening to your prayers. How is that possible? Because God doesn't need your prayers. God doesn't need your begging. God doesn't need you to convince Him to be good to you. God is already good. God is already giving. God is already providing. 100%, not 99%, 100%. The Kabbalah teaches that the Creator is an endless force of giving, constantly giving, always giving, never stopping. So if God is always giving, why aren't you receiving? That's the question, and that's the answer. That changes everything. You're not receiving because you don't know how to connect. You don't know how to access. You don't know how to use the tools. Let me give you an analogy. Electricity is flowing through the walls of your house right now, constantly. 24/7, endless power. But if you don't plug in your device, you don't get the power. Not because the electricity stopped flowing, but because you're not connected. Prayer is not about convincing God to turn on the electricity. Prayer is about plugging in. Prayer is about connection. Prayer is about accessing what's already there. And the way you access it is not by begging, it's by using the tools, it's by taking action, it's by moving forward. Now, let me teach you the tools. the actual practical Kabbalistic tools that Moses used, that the patriarchs used, that you can use. Tool number 1. The 72 Names of God. In Exodus chapter 14, verses 19, 20, and 21, there's a hidden code. Each of these 3 verses has exactly 72 letters, not 71, not 73, exactly 72. This doesn't occur anywhere else in the Torah. This is unique. This is intentional. This is a code. The Zohar, the ancient book of Kabbalah, explains that these 72 letters, when combined in a specific formula, create 72 3-letter combinations. These are called the 72 Names of God. And these names are not names like Bob or Steve. These are frequencies. These are codes. These are access points to divine power. When you meditate on these names, when you connect to these frequencies, you access mind over matter. You access miracles. You access the ability to control nature. This is not superstition. This is spiritual technology. This is how Moses split the sea. This is how the patriarchs created wealth. This is how miracles happen. Now, I'm not going to teach you all 72 names in this video. That would take hours. But I'm going to teach you the principle, the framework, the understanding. Each of the 72 names corresponds to a specific aspect of reality. One name is for healing. One name is for prosperity. One name is for protection. One name is for removing negative energy. One name is for creating miracles. When you need something, you don't beg God for it. You connect to the specific frequency that governs that aspect of reality. You meditate on the name. You visualize the letters. You align your consciousness with that frequency. And then you act. You move forward. You do your part. This is the secret. This is what God told Moses. Why are you praying to me? I already gave you the tools. Use them and move forward. Tool number 2. Consciousness over matter. In Kabbalah, we teach that consciousness creates reality, not metaphorically, literally. The physical world is a manifestation of the spiritual world. Matter is a manifestation of consciousness. What you see is a reflection of what you think. This is not New Age nonsense. This is ancient wisdom. This is quantum physics before quantum physics existed. When Moses stood at the Red Sea, he had a choice. He could see an obstacle, or he could see an opportunity. If he saw an obstacle, the sea would remain an obstacle. But if he saw an opportunity, if he shifted his consciousness, if he accessed the frequency of miracles, the sea would split. And that's exactly what happened. Moses didn't beg God to split the sea. Moses connected to the frequency of miracles. Moses shifted his consciousness, and the sea responded. This is the principle. Your consciousness determines your reality. If you see lack, you experience lack. If you see abundance, you experience abundance. If you see obstacles, you experience obstacles. If you see miracles, you experience miracles. So the question is, what are you seeing? What consciousness are you operating from? If you're operating from fear, from lack, from limitation, you'll experience fear, lack, and limitation. But if you shift your consciousness, if you connect to the frequency of miracles, if you align with divine abundance, you'll experience miracles. Tool number 3. Action, not begging. This is the most important tool, and it's the one most people miss. God told Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move forward." Move forward, not pray harder, not beg more, not convince me. Move forward. Action is the key. Action is the connection. Action is the vessel. You can pray all day. You can meditate all day. You can visualize all day. But if you don't act, nothing happens. Prayer without action is useless. Meditation without action is useless. Consciousness without action is useless. You have to move forward. You have to take the step. You have to do your part. And here's the miracle. When you take the step, when you move forward, when you act from faith instead of fear, reality shifts. The sea splits. The obstacle moves. The miracle happens. Not because God decided to help you, but because you activated the spiritual technology. You connected to the frequency. You created the vessel. And the blessing flowed in. Let me give you a modern example. I had a client named Rachel. Rachel wanted to start a business. She had an idea. She had passion. She had vision. But she was scared. She didn't have money. She didn't have experience. She didn't have connections. So she prayed. Every day, for months. God, please help me start this business. Please send me the money. Please send me the clients. Please make it happen. And nothing happened. Month after month, nothing. She came to me frustrated. "Rabbi, I'm praying every day. Why isn't God answering?" I said, "God is answering. He's saying, move forward. Stop praying and start acting." She said, "But I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. How can I start?" I said, "You don't need everything to start. You just need to take the first step. Register the business. Build the website. Make the first offer. Move forward." She was skeptical, but she did it. She registered the business. She built a simple website. She made her first offer. And within 2 weeks, she got her first client. Within a month, she had 3 clients. Within 3 months, she was making more money than her old job. Within a year, she had a thriving business. She came back to me and said, "Rabbi, the prayer didn't work, but the action did." I said, "No. The prayer and the action worked together. The prayer connected you to the frequency. The action created the vessel, and the miracle happened. That's the secret. That's the formula. Connect to the frequency. Create the vessel. Move forward, and watch the miracle happen." Now, let me address the objection I know you're thinking. "Rabbi, this sounds like you're saying we don't need God, like we can do it ourselves." No, that's not what I'm saying. You absolutely need God. You absolutely need divine power. You absolutely need the Creator. But you don't need to beg. You don't need to convince. You don't need to plead. You need to connect. You need to access. You need to use the tools. Think of it like electricity again. You need electricity to power your device. But you don't beg the electricity to flow. You just plug in. You connect. You access. That's what prayer should be. Not begging, connecting. Not pleading, accessing. Not convincing, using the tools. And when you shift from begging to connecting, from pleading to accessing, from convincing to using, everything changes. Miracles become normal. Abundance becomes natural. Success becomes inevitable. Not because you're special, but because you're connected. Not because God likes you more, but because you're using the tools. Let me give you 3 practical steps to access miracles and control nature. Step 1. Identify the frequency you need. What do you need? Healing? Prosperity? Protection? Breakthrough? Miracle? Each need has a corresponding frequency. Each frequency has a corresponding name of God. Each name has a corresponding meditation. Do the research. Learn the names. Study the frequencies. Understand the technology. Step 2. Connect to the frequency. This is where meditation comes in. This is where visualization comes in. This is where consciousness work comes in. You don't beg, you connect. You don't plead, you align. You don't convince, you tune in. Meditate on the name. Visualize the letters. Feel the frequency. Align your consciousness. Become one with the energy. This is not woo-woo. This is technology. This is how you plug in. This is how you access. Step 3. Move forward. This is the most important step. Take action. Do something. Move forward. Don't wait for a sign. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for everything to be perfect. Just move forward. Take the first step. Make the first call. Send the first email. Launch the first product. Whatever it is, do it. And watch what happens. Watch how reality shifts. Watch how obstacles move. Watch how miracles happen. Not because God decided to help you, but because you activated the technology. You connected to the frequency. You created the vessel, and the blessing flowed in. Let me close with this. You are more powerful than you think. You have access to more than you realize. You can create miracles. You can control nature. You can access divine power. Not by begging, not by pleading, not by convincing God to like you, but by connecting, by accessing, by using the tools, by moving forward. This is what Moses did. This is what the patriarchs did. This is what every miracle worker throughout history has done. And this is what you can do. Today. Right now. This moment. Stop praying for miracles. Start creating miracles. Stop begging for abundance. Start accessing abundance. Stop pleading for breakthrough. Start moving forward into breakthrough. The tools are already there. The power is already flowing. The electricity is already on. All you have to do is plug in, connect, access, and move forward. And watch your life transform. In the comments below, tell me, what miracle do you need? What frequency do you need to connect to? And if this video opened your eyes to a new way of accessing divine power, subscribe to this channel. Next week, I'm going to teach you the specific 72 names of God and how to use them for wealth, health, and miracles. Remember what God said to Moses. Why are you crying out to me? Move forward. Stop crying out. Start moving forward and watch the sea split. Shalom, and until next time. But before you go, I need to tell you something that will determine whether this works for you or not. Most people will hear this teaching and think, "Great! Now I have a formula for miracles. Now I can get whatever I want." And they'll try it, and it won't work. And they'll say, "See? This doesn't work. Miracles aren't real. This is all nonsense." But the problem isn't the teaching. The problem is the consciousness they're bringing to it. Let me explain. The 72 names of God are not magic spells. They're not cheat codes. They're not shortcuts to bypass spiritual growth. They're tools. And like any tool, they only work if you're qualified to use them. You can't give a scalpel to someone who's never studied medicine and expect them to perform surgery. You can't give a Formula One car to someone who's never driven and expect them to win a race. The same is true with spiritual technology. You can't access miracles if your consciousness is still operating from ego, from selfishness, from lack. In Isaiah, God says, "Even when you offer many prayers, I am not listening. Your hands are full of blood." What does that mean? It means if you're still judging people, if you're still treating people badly, if you're still operating from ego, your prayers are meaningless. Your meditations are useless. Your spiritual practices are empty. Because the tools only work when you're aligned, when your consciousness is pure, when your intentions are right, when your actions match your prayers. This is why God told Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Move forward." Moses wasn't just praying. Moses had spent 80 years preparing. Moses had humbled himself. Moses had purified his consciousness. Moses had aligned with divine will. So when Moses stood at the Red Sea, he wasn't begging from ego. He was connecting from alignment. He wasn't pleading from selfishness. He was accessing from purity. And that's why the sea split. Not because Moses knew the formula, but because Moses was qualified to use the formula. So before you try to access miracles, before you try to control nature, before you try to use the 72 names, ask yourself, am I aligned? Am I pure? Am I operating from love or from ego? Am I serving or am I taking? Am I giving or am I hoarding? If you're still operating from ego, if you're still judging people, if you're still treating people badly, the tools won't work. Not because they're not real, but because you're not qualified. But if you're willing to do the inner work, if you're willing to purify your consciousness, if you're willing to align with divine will, the tools will work. The miracles will happen. The sea will split. Let me tell you about Michael. Michael learned about the 72 names of God. He was excited. He thought, finally, a formula for wealth, a shortcut to success. So he started meditating on the name for prosperity. Every day, multiple times a day. He visualized the letters. He connected to the frequency. He did everything right. And nothing happened. Month after month, nothing. He came to me frustrated. "Rabbi, I'm doing everything you taught. Why isn't it working?" I asked him, "How do you treat people? How do you conduct business? Are you honest? Are you generous? Are you serving?" He was silent. Because the truth was, he was cutting corners. He was lying to clients. He was hoarding money. He was operating from pure ego. I said, "Michael, the tools don't work if your consciousness is corrupt. You can't access divine abundance if you're operating from greed. You can't create miracles if you're treating people badly." He was offended. He said, "So I have to be perfect? I have to be a saint?" I said, "No, you don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be aligned. You do have to be sincere. You do have to be willing to grow." He left angry. But 6 months later he came back. He said, "Rabbi, you were right. I changed. I started treating people better. I started being honest. I started giving. And now the tools work. Now the abundance is flowing. Now the miracles are happening." That's the key. The tools work, but only if you're qualified, only if you're aligned, only if you're pure. So don't try to use spiritual technology to bypass spiritual growth. Don't try to access miracles to feed your ego. Don't try to control nature to serve your selfishness. Instead, do the inner work. Purify your consciousness. Align with divine will. Treat people well. Be honest. Be generous. Be loving. And then, when you're aligned, when you're pure, when you're qualified, use the tools, connect to the frequencies, access the divine power, move forward, and watch the miracles happen. Now, let me give you one final principle, the principle that ties everything together. In Kabbalah, we teach that there are 2 types of miracles: miracles that change nature and miracles that work through nature. Splitting the Red Sea is a miracle that changes nature. Water doesn't normally split. That's supernatural. That's beyond nature. But most miracles work through nature. A business opportunity appears. A relationship forms. A door opens. A solution emerges. These don't look like miracles. They look like coincidences. They look like luck. They look like natural events. But they are not. They are miracles. They are divine interventions. They are the result of you connecting to the frequency, creating the vessel, and moving forward. And here's the key. You don't get to choose which type of miracle you get. You don't get to demand that the sea splits. You don't get to insist on the supernatural. You just connect. You just access. You just move forward. And you trust that the miracle will come in whatever form is best.